welcome back to another episode of Charity Questions. And today we're really lucky to have Giles Pegram with us. And Giles is a long-time supporter of DSC and has been an associate and an author for us in many different situations. And has, of course, been a director of the NSPCC as well, and is bringing his wealth of fundraising knowledge to us today. And that's the wealth of fundraising knowledge, right? We're looking to raise funds and learn how we can do by this conversation with Giles. And specifically for the listeners out there, we're going to be talking in detail about major appeals and transformational fundraising. So welcome to the podcast, Giles. It's been a long time coming and we're finally here, aren't we? I'm looking forward to
this. Thank you, George. I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you.
Great. So we're going to start right at the beginning then. And I'm interested to know, and when I put the questions to the DSC team as well, this is kind of where we started. What made you pursue your career in fundraising, Giles?
I'm going to keep most of my answers succinct, but this one, I'm afraid, is a bit discursive.
Love it.
When I was 10, a lady gave a talk in our school, primary school, and she was from the Oxford Committee for Famine Relief. And she had no visual aids, and she basically told a story of a boy called Ben, and how he was starving and what he looked like, etc.
Wow.
And there was no call to action at the end. She was just coming in to tell a story. But I was hugely inspired. So I went back to my desk, and at playtime, I asked my two best friends if they would act as sub-editors to me as editor of a school newspaper. So I think I'm going to come back. I've got three other things to say about where I started.
Nice.
But for me, the thing I say on my website is that fundraising is not about persuading people to give to the charity. It's about inspiring people to give to the cause and have a great experience doing so. So nobody tried to persuade me to give. I was inspired to give.
Yeah.
Nobody gives money to a committee. Nobody. I was giving money to help Ben. I was giving money to the cause.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you want to ask me then, or should I move on?
No, I like that. It's I
Okay.
think the way you explain that, we're not giving money to the organisations; it's the cause, isn't it? And we know how important that is to put in the process when we do our bids, right? And get the beneficiary voice in there. So then, looking back,
No. I've got more to say.
Please.
I sent a check to Oxfam. I banked the money, the cash, and my father made a check.
Nice.
And I got a letter back from the Oxford Committee for Famine Relief.
Yeah.
And it was personal to me, and it came with a personal signature. It was a letter, a real letter. It used mail merge, a very early form of mail merge.
Nice.
And within the mail merge, it said, you may be interested to know that last month we blah, 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 blah. And I think that was brilliant, because what it did is it connected me as a donor to the work that had been done last month. And therefore, I had confidence that my money would be used to fund good work next month.
This month, yeah.
I don't know of any charity that does that at the moment. And then finally, the ask at the end, it could not be more subtle. So what they said was, if ever you and your friends happen to find yourself in Oxford, do come in and see us. Please send dates to Jenny Olsen. And that was a powerful ask. Why would they want to get me to go to Oxfam? Solely in order to inspire me to do more. So that was a brilliant letter. And somebody told me that I'd raised £500 billion in today's money. That was all down to that one letter.
Wow. And that's what they believe in today's money, that appeal raised, yeah.
No. Yes, sir. 500 billion is what I've raised during my lifetime. But I started going back to what inspired me to pursue a career in fundraising. It was that letter.
500 billion. Amazing, Giles. And so what a nice Genesis story there as well. Are you happy for me to move on? Any more to say?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, that's it. That was a discursive one.
No, I like it. So reflecting on that journey then a little bit further, maybe you've got some qualities you think have been crucial for effective leadership, but also generally fundraising. What qualities have you been able to bring to your career that you think you would want to share with others if you could?
I think I thought about the single most important one is the building of internal relationships. And I think as a fundraising director, I spent quality time with the finance director, the services director, and the chief executive, and the human resources director. And that investment of time in those internal relationships was absolutely key when it came to getting money for investment, getting child protection workers out into the field to help fundraising, etc. So I would say building internal relationships is the single most important one.
And I was going to say, so potentially looking to others then joining their career in fundraising, building internal relationships very important for them. Is there any other advice you'd give to somebody that's maybe sat there and maybe one of our listeners is potentially thinking about a career in fundraising? Anything else you might say to them that they could work on?
I think fundraising is hard work. It really
Mm,
is. And I work very hard. But when I was driving home at the end of each day, the one thing I reflected on was that instead of raising money to pay dividends to shareholders, I was raising money to make a difference to the world. And for me, as a fundraiser, that was the single driver that caused me to go home, have a
mm.
break, and then get up in the morning.
I sometimes say we're not selling software to banks. And it's
Exactly.
exactly that, isn't it? Yeah, you're right. It's the cause can be it's so challenging because it's absolutely a motivation. It can also be too much of a motivation and leading us to believe that we should be doing more when actually we're already doing everything we can, right? Very nice, Giles. I like that. So I want to talk to you more about major appeals then, because for me, this is not my area of fundraising. I love writing an application and certain things like that, but you've absolutely got the expertise to share with our listeners right now. So if we think of some strategies that you found particularly effective for engaging individual donors to support major appeals, is there potentially one you want to share, or is there like something you would do whenever you're approaching a major appeal, trying to get individual donors on board?
There are two strategies. Um, Looking back at my career, the building of the NSPCC from being the number 15th charity in the UK to number third
Wow.
was the two major appeals we organised. And there were two fundamentals. The first is that you have to give 3 years between the decision of the trustees and the launch of the appeal.
Wow.
Unless it doesn't take a lot of money, it's
Mm.
calendar time, it's getting time in people's diaries,
Hmm.
etc., etc. And unless you give it 3 years, you're going to fail. And the second strategy is
Mm.
that you have to get volunteers to own the target. There's
Mm.
no point in volunteers helping staff to raise the money for the appeal. You need to transfer the ownership of the target to the volunteers
Mm.
and get them to really own it. So the staff are helping the volunteers to raise their target rather than the other way around. And that goes back, I suspect, to what Michael Norton would have believed at
Yeah.
the start of DSC.
It's very clever, isn't it? And it's absolutely the right way to distribute that ownership then between individuals. Nice. So then discussing major appeals, if you're looking at maybe more a strategic partnership with an organization or again, maybe like a major donor, something like that, how have you approached those more strategic partnerships?
I think it's the same. It's being volunteer led. It's. I remember in the full stop appeal, we came up with loads of ideas as staff um, for fundraising.
Mm.
But the ideas that volunteers came up with that they owned and did were far better than ours. Brilliant. They were brilliant. They were
Yeah.
creative, and
Yeah.
they then owned them and did them.
Mm.
And I think we as staff, we sometimes underestimate our volunteers. Um, and I think we should stop saying we're so clever and start to say the volunteers are clever. How can we help them?
And I like that, and I think there's a lot to be said for like they also are potentially closer to it in some cases. And I see that at DSC we have a volunteering policy that enables us to get closer to the sector. Volunteers are typically in some roles the closest people to the beneficiaries, and absolutely there's expertise there, isn't there, to be gained. So when we're talking about major appeals, then put a lot of onus on the volunteers, and I'm sure
All
maybe
of it.
thinking,
All of
yeah,
it.
yeah, well said, all of it,
The role of
nice.
staff is to support the volunteers in raising their target. That is a fundamental principle. It's hard work too,
Hmm.
but if you can get it right, it'll work.
The role of staff is to support the volunteers to hit their target. I
That's
love
it.
that. Yeah, I'm going to be saying this, Charles. You've got that. You said, yeah. I mean, it makes sense, and actually, yeah, and I see it. So I don't get involved in this space, but if you are raising for an organisation, it is you, isn't it, the volunteer that has that responsibility and that ownership.
And
Amazing.
we are called the voluntary sector. I
Yeah,
just
it
need to
helps.
remind I need to remind your watcher viewers of that.
Yeah,
The clue is on the tin.
yeah, it is, isn't it? Very good, the voluntary sector. And I sometimes remind people as well how much credibility having volunteers gives you as well in your fundraising applications. People, I'm like, how many volunteers do you have? Oh, well, I have 20 volunteers giving me 2 hours a week. And you've not told the funder? You need to tell the funder this because this would cost you a
Yep,
lot of money if you were trying to
yep,
employ somebody
yep.
to do that work,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely right. Absolutely
Yeah,
right.
and actually the credibility you get is like, well, you've persuaded 20 people to give you 2 hours a week. Of course, I'm going to give you the £10,000.
No, no, you didn't persuade them, George. You inspired them.
Inspired
Please,
them. I love it.
to
This
your
is why
viewers,
language is so important.
inspire, not persuade.
So right. So true. Thank you, Giles. Inspired. I love it. So this is being transformational for me already. We can see in the language. So let's talk about transformational fundraising, and this is something that I've heard you talk about a lot. But maybe for our listeners, do you want to just explain what you mean when you say transformational fundraising?
Yeah, you told me about this question, and I can sum it up in a quote from Harold Sumption, and I'll say it once and repeat it. Fundraising is not about money; it's about important work that needs doing.
Mm,
If you start by asking for money, you won't get it, and you won't deserve it. And that, for me, sums up what transformational fundraising is about. It's not about asking for money;
hmm.
it's about putting the donor at the center of helping the cause. Fundraising is not about money.
Mm,
Fundraising is about important work that needs
hmm.
doing. If you start by asking for money, you won't get it and you won't deserve it. This is
So
50
true.
years ago, Harold Sumption, and very wise man.
Amazing. Harold Sumpton, did you say? I've not heard of him before.
Sumption, yes.
Sumption.
Google him. He's got some very wise saws. Or Google me, and I've written some articles about him.
Nice. Howard Sumption. Yeah, I'm sure there's people Googling him now. Very nice. So transformational fundraising, yeah, being able to give money to the cause, not to necessarily the organization, and all of this lovely stuff you've been saying already. So an example then potentially of successful transformational fundraising. Could you share one that you've been a part of, Giles?
Yeah, my deputy, Tim Hunter at the NSPCC, started an initiative called Donor Plus. Um,
Mm,
and it's like Donor Plus, great fundraising equals a difference for children. And so there were posters all over the place, talks all over the place. And we really worked to get our fundraisers all to think that they should put the donor at the center. And we talk about being donor centric. So many of us don't actually think about what being donor centric means in
mm,
practice. And that's what I mean by transformational fundraising. I mean, stopping to think about the organization and start thinking about the cause.
mm.
Stop thinking about asking for money and persuading people and start talking about inspiring people to the cause. That's what I mean by transformational fundraising. It's a 90-degree shift in thinking.
Yeah, and I see it sometimes in bids. I read a lot of bids, and it'll be like, "We do this, and we're this amazing charity. We've been here for this long," and then at the bottom it says, "We do this because there are this many people experiencing homelessness or whatever it might be." And I'm like, "Move it up to the top. That's your. Is this kind of what you're saying? Bring that cause right to the forefront of your application or your ask." Yeah. So, you've been in this. I mean, I don't know how long you've been a fundraiser, but yeah, and obviously you've
Oh,
been in.
60 years. I started when I was 10. And I've been doing it full.
Yeah.
I've been doing it full time. I did my A levels and my degree in my spare time.
Wow, there you go then. So 60 years of fundraising, you've watched the world of philanthropy change, and I'm sure you've observed a lot of this in close detail. So in terms of maybe some recent trends, and I don't want to put anything in your mind yet, but I'm thinking of some stuff. What recent trends are there in philanthropy that are maybe influencing how fundraising strategies, or actually, I'll give you both, either fundraising strategies or donor behavior, how are they changing based on the kind of changing world of fundraising?
This I think is the last question, so your viewers can be reassured. But I'm now going back into discursive mode. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
afraid
Please do.
people say that fundraise. People say that fundraising. Fundraisers say that fundraising is getting more difficult,
Mm,
and a lot of people put this down to the fact that people are less generous, people are less philanthropic than they used to be, etc. etc. I've been watching it for 60 years, and I don't believe it. I think that the problem with fundraisers getting more difficult is us fundraisers um, getting it wrong. So I talked about the letter I received from Oxfam when I gave a gift. I do mystery shopping on behalf of clients.
nice.
And I sent one in October to 20 different charities.
Mm,
And the response that I got back, I mean, first of all, it would normally be not from an individual, it would be from the Save the Giraffes team. The second thing is in the thank you letter for the first gift, it said, thank you for your continued support.
mm,
Now that galled me because it was very clear that they didn't know that it was my first gift, that nobody knew, no individual knew that I'd given a gift. I was
mm,
never thanked,
mm,
made feel welcome. And then the next 10 emails I got were from online trading. So it was very clear that there was no one person that held the relationship
mhm,
with a donor.
Mm,
that the donor file was available to all fundraising departments to use as they wished. And I think that's not good practice.
mm,
Then, um, fundraising directors tell me their charity is niche and doesn't have a strong base of philanthropic support. And so they say they need products and presumably products to sell because that's what you do with products, isn't it?
yeah.
And so we have mass participation events, raffles, events, and many other products to sell. And I have a different view. I think the feel good factor from the joy of giving is by far and away the greatest product any fundraiser has to sell.
Mm,
And whatever you do, and wherever you do it, you have a base of people who will be inspired by your cause, however local or niche, and be ready to support you.
mm,
And for me, George, this is really, really key. People need to believe it. Because once you do, instead of products, you can think of identifying, inspiring, and cultivating the people rather than thinking about products to sell to the general public.
mm.
And I think, and that's something you want to pick up on. My final word to those appeals directors of small and niche charities who
Please.
don't think they have a strong base of support
Mm,
is that your charity exists because your founders identified a need and got together with other people, do something about it, and
mm,
persuade other people to give. So put yourself in your founder's shoes, and you won't go far wrong. Because if the founders hadn't been successful, you wouldn't be in the role you are now. That's my
point.
message to the niche fundraiser in the field who feels, oh, I don't have a philanthropic base of support. Yes, you do.
Mm, mm. I love this, and I just want to summarize some of the things you said. Making it volunteer and donor led, right? Putting the responsibility on the volunteers, making the staff support that, right? And typically we're outnumbered by our volunteers, so this makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Can we help them with any interference to raise money? Absolutely, and that's what our role then becomes, rather than them helping us
Yep.
managing the individual
Yep.
relationships. This isn't a fundraising book, but it really inspired me. It's called The Company of One, just a recommendation from me. But that really talks about everybody that you sell to should be nurtured as if they're your only person that you sell to. And obviously that's sales, kind of private kind of organization stuff. But it lends me to think about what you were saying there. And there was a wonderful comment by the guy Simon Scriver, who runs the charity, or it's not a charity, he runs the organization Fundraising Everywhere. And he said he signs every donor letter with his name and his number. It's like giving people the bat phone. And some, when you get like a mortgage letter from Barclays, for me, you don't think the CEO has sent you the letter, even though it says the CEO's name at the bottom. It's that kind of cheesy thing, isn't it? So I love that you said that. You're also saying it's not about the project, is it? It's about actually the people that it influences, and put yourself in the founder's shoes, Giles. I really like that. Is there anything else that you want to share with people based on any of your experience in fundraising?
No, I think if people have picked up on those things, I'll be more than happy that we've had a good 20 minutes.
Nice, Giles. And I think, yeah, really well done. And I know that we were talking about the length and how we wanted to do it. And I think this has been perfect because people can obviously now, if they want to, reach out to you directly, Giles. And would you mind giving us some information about how people could find out where you are?
Very easily, my website is www.gilespegram.com. I've just revamped it, so even if you don't need a consultant, it's worth having a look because I'm quite proud of it.
Absolutely
But if
agree.
you do need a consultant, when you do need a consultant, I'll be there for you.
And I
So
agree with that too.
thank you for letting me have a plug.
It's no plug at all, Giles. Thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom for free with the listeners of this podcast. So, just to say that it's Giles Pegram, it's GilesPegram, GilesPegram. And the website was it www.giles, is it .pegram, sorry, or gilespegram.com?
Www.gilespegram.com. Couldn't be
Gotcha.
easier. Or
Lovely.
just Google Giles Pegram.
Give them a
You'll find
Google.
me. There
Thank
aren't
you
many
so
Giles Pegrams around.
Thank you so much, Giles, for your
My
time,
pleasure.
and yeah,
My
for being
pleasure.
able to cover such a broad topic with such brevity as well. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. This has been another episode of the Charity Questions podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching Charity Questions by the Directory of Social Change. So this is the podcast where we bring charity experts to you and we ask them the questions that you provide us via social media. So if you want to get involved, please check out the Directory of Social Change on Instagram, Twitter or LinkedIn. And of course, to hear more about this content and to learn more about Charity Questions, subscribe to our YouTube channel now and of course like this video to let us know if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.